Hello there and welcome to the Bicycle Diaries. So okay, it's a slight change of location. In fact, I'm downstairs in my conservatory, and the reason I'm here is because it is just a little bit cooler. And we've been experiencing a bit of a heat wave here at the moment, and by heat wave I mean around about 35 degrees Celsius or about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I know that there are people watching this where that is kind of the norm, places like Australia and the southern United States, but here in the UK, that kind of temperature is just simply unheard of, and it's been making life a little bit difficult for everybody. Now, consequently, I have been trying to go out and do my rides earlier in the day to avoid all of the heat. I went out on Monday and did a 30-kilometre loop on the Southwark course, but for one reason or another, the Karoo never saved the ride and I had to do a manual upload to Strava. Now, for the life of me, I can't remember exactly what happened. I think it might have been user error, but I can't be 100% sure. But anyway, the Karoo didn't save the ride. Then yesterday I went out and I did a 70-kilometre ride, and that was down through Wickham into Gosport, out to Fareham and then back home again, and it was incredibly hot. I stopped at one point just to swap my bottles over, and yet it was just unbearably hot. So my plan was to go out and do another 100 kilometres, but the heat just got to me and I ended up cutting it short and riding home and doing about 70 kilometres. Now, the reason for all the long rides at the moment is because I have been invited out to Italy at the end of August, so it's about 2.5 weeks away, and the rides that we will be doing out there are quite tough. We've got 6 rides planned, and over the 6 rides the climbing will be approximately 8,500 meters or so, and to put that into some sort of context, that's just under 50% of all of the climbing that I've done for this year so far. So obviously that's quite a lot of climbing, and I have to admit I'm a little bit scared. So I'm really doing everything I can at the moment to get some climbing in, to build my endurance up so that I'm fit for the rides out in Italy. Now, you may be wondering, is it wise or even responsible to be traveling at a time like this with all of the COVID and everything? And I've been reassured by Tim over at Inspired Italy, and he assures me that Italy is perfectly safe. And indeed, I've done my own research, and the government here in the UK and their advice on their website seems to back that up. Now, as UK citizens, we are free to travel. There are indeed flights leaving and arriving into the UK all the time. There's no restrictions on where we can go, as far as I'm aware, but there are restrictions on where we can return from. Now, the countries that we are kind of okay to return from are on a list called the Air Bridge, and Italy's on there, which means when I return to the UK, I don't have to self-isolate for 2 weeks. But if Italy wasn't on that list, then I would have to self-isolate, and that would mean no leaving the house for anything, no work, no shopping, no medical attention, nothing, and obviously that would mean no cycling. I'll be honest and say that while I'm in Italy, I don't think I'll be too worried about the virus itself, because the rates of the virus over there are really, really low. Plus, all of the usual protocols will be in place, so there'll be things like hand washing and hand sanitizer and masks where appropriate. So that's very, very much like the same as we have here in the UK at the moment. Considering I have my big Italian trip coming up, I thought I'd better go out and do another long one again today. The plan is to ride up to a place called Alton
and then back home. I've not really measured it, but I'm guessing it's going to be about 70 kilometers with about 600 meters of climbing. So that's basically same distance that I did on Wednesday, but around twice the amount of climbing, although that's still half the amount that I'll be doing on a typical day over in Italy. As you can see, we no longer have the clear blue skies and the temperature has cooled down considerably. No longer do we have the extraordinarily high temperatures. Today it's about 23 degrees Celsius and it might even start raining, but to be honest, I'm not going to be too worried about that, because I think to be a little bit cool now is actually really nice. I really love this little back road between Idsworth and Brereton. Scenery's amazing. The road surface isn't bad. It's a gentle climb for about 10-12 kilometers, 1-2%. So it's a great opportunity to build up a bit of leg strength. And yeah, I'll be lucky if I see 2, maybe 3 cars on this whole stretch. I probably say it every single time I film myself going down Kiln Lane. It's a terrifying descent. 200-300 meters with an average descent of about 12-13%. It's a killer. This road's a whole different story now. It used to be the main Portsmouth to London road, but now, since the bypass, this is a lot quieter, but it's still much busier than the road that I've just been on. It's quite a climb too, about 3 kilometers at about 3%, but it's one that's really good for just going into a lower gear, spinning away and building up your cardiovascular system. No sooner have I climbed up it, I'm going to be descending again. Well, that was a nice little breather, if nothing else. And then no sooner have I descended, I'm climbing again, this time Empshot Hill. my word, that was tough. Every bit as tough as I remember. Maxed out at 13-14% there at the top, but I made it. Just grit my teeth, just ground my way up, and now I'm on the descent. Should be pretty much downhill all the way to Alton now. Just a couple of kilometres outside of Alton town centre, I veered off because there's not much point going into the town only to come back out on the same side. So I'm taking the route back home now through a village called Chawton, which is actually very famous as the home of the novelist Jane Austen, who wrote things like Pride and Prejudice. 45 kilometers in, still feeling fairly good. Definitely on the way home now. Got about 30-35 kilometers to go. I'm on the main Alton to Fareham road, and there's not a lot on it between here and there apart from a few farms and a couple of big ass climbs, so it's just a question of which climb I'm going to take to get home. Coming up to decision time now. Do I take the next left and go up over Old Winchester Hill? It's shorter, but it's a lot harder. Or do I carry on to Wickham and that way home? That's longer, but a bit easier. Let's see if I'm brave. Looks like I've wussed out. Wickham, here I come. Only about 3 more kilometers to go until Wickham now, and then I'll turn, and then it's about 18 k's home, and that will be a pretty respectable ride for today. Just on 74 kilometers in, starting to feel it a bit now. Just stop for a very quick break, take on some gels, and hopefully that will get me all the way home. It's not too far now. Yeah. I don't know if it's psychological or not, but it's surprising how much better I feel after that gel. Last 5k now, and I don't mind admitting it has been pretty tough but very rewarding. In many ways it was a lot easier than the ride that I did on Wednesday, which I said was 70 kilometers with about 300 meters of climbing. I think that's because you know, if there aren't any significant climbs, there aren't any significant descents to recover on, and I think that's what's made all the difference today. There we go, another ride in the account. Slightly longer than I'd anticipated. My estimate was about 70 kilometers, and by the time I get home it will be about 88.5, so a fair bit further than I thought, and hopefully a nice bit of climbing as well. All in all, fantastic days cycling, and now I'm really looking forward to getting home and having a nice big glass of fizzy mineral water. Fortunately, I've got a nice big bottle in the fridge.
Turns out that I did a little bit more climbing than I first thought, and ended up climbing 726 meters on this ride. Now, I have to admit this is a little bit surprising, particularly when you have a look at the Strava profile. Okay, there's a couple of sharp lumps and bumps in there and one kind of longish grind, but nothing too spectacular. So this gives me a little bit of hope for when I go out to Tuscany, although I do suspect that there will be a couple of mountains there as well. So speaking of numbers, that brings the week's total to 187.6 kilometers ridden. I've got 7 hours and 40 minutes of seat time, and I've climbed 1,384 meters. And that brings the year's total to 3,819 kilometers ridden. I've got 165 hours of seat time, and I've climbed 23,622 meters. So if we go over to Strava, we can see that on Wednesday my fitness score was 59, and then on Friday it was 62. One piece of bad news this week is my Mallorca trip. I was talking to my friends at Cardio Sport, who are very kindly sponsoring the trip, and unfortunately, due to the COVID and the quarantine restrictions on people returning to the UK from Spain and the islands, it looks like we're going to have to cancel. So that's a bit unfortunate. But the good news is that we've also been talking about alternate events, and we've got a couple of pretty exciting things lined up. We haven't chosen one yet, but hopefully whatever we do choose will be pretty amazing. The plan for next week is to continue working on building up my endurance and my climbing ability. But the challenge here is that the weather's not looking particularly good, plus I'm also away. Hopefully though, I'll be able to get out and do some rides, and I'll be fit and ready for those climbs in Tuscany when I fly out at the end of August. Thanks for watching.